Welcome to Student Stories, where we have conversations with students regarding school and other issues they're facing today. Today I sat down with Chris Kerr, an NHS senior who's involved with theater and played a valuable role in the reopening decisions for the schools.
Are you involved in anything other than theater right now? Or are you even involved in theater right now?
Kind of. We actually just canceled the play we were doing because I was like, look, this is a really bad time to be doing a play, and I don't feel great about doing this, and there are a lot of people who are involved who don't feel great about doing this, so let's just take a break. Maybe we can come back to it in a little bit, but like now is not the time to be adding the stress of like a process that the show is. It was just another thing that people were adding to their plate, and it was a really, really stressful time to be in a show.
And it's like, how do you find the time to do that?
Exactly.
It's not like the online school is less intense.
I would argue it's more intense. I have a really hard time with it. And that was one of the problems that when I was doing the work with just students for Safe Back to School, and trying to push for a more encouraged remote culture from the school and the town. It was kind of like an internal struggle as well, because yes, I'm advocating for this and I know it's right and I know we have to go remote because it's not a time to have in-person classes. It's not the time, it's unsafe. But I reflected on how much I struggled with remote learning the year prior. And I was like, am I ready for this? I know that this is what I'm working on and I know it's important, but I'm in a mid, because I knew that there were kids that were making the choice to go in person, and I started to feel almost that like jealousy, that like it was like, I want that, but I recognize I can't have that because it's important to understand the circumstances we're in and kind of reflect on that. And it was also important to recognize that this year's remote plan is a lot different than last year's remote plan. Last year's remote plan, the school was shut down for 2 weeks, or we were told it was 2 weeks. So the teachers were kind of just like, oh, we'll do kind of something for 2 weeks and we'll be back. COVID will go away in 2 weeks. We'll figure it out. Nothing was really graded. It was pass fail, and it was there was no late work. And I would argue that all these are good things, considering it was the last 2 months of school, and it was a really hard time for kids to be focusing on school. But from an education perspective of we need to educate these kids, I would say it wasn't the best plan, and I think a lot of people agree with that. I really struggled with it. It felt like my learning wasn't really encouraged, and so I think that stigmatized online learning for a lot of people. But the school administration and teachers then for the entire summer worked on a remote plan that I feel is effective, and I'm like, it's a lot more structured. It's graded. I'm having a hard time with it in certain classes, but I much prefer it to how it was last year.
Yeah, that's part of what I was gonna ask actually, was like, are there any advantages that you're finding doing online that you didn't expect? I mean, it's hard to find the good side of it, but is there anything that like has come out of it that you think you're glad that you chose to do remote?
I'll wake up 5-10 minutes before my class and like throw on like a shirt and just like, and then sit down and be like, oh, time for class. If I have time, I'll run down and grab a coffee, maybe a banana. It's just like, and I get to see my dog, and it's just like all these great things that like, I took a shower in between my physics and calculus class the other day, and it was great. It's great. I took a shower, and it's like, it's something you couldn't do at school. So there's definitely upsides for me. I think it's, of course I miss the social aspect, and being in school, but that worries me because I feel like there's no way to ensure that it's done safely. I mean, even if we put rules and regulations in place, you can't depend on a high school population for stuff like this.
People are kind of in these pods that like move in and out of the school, and maybe they don't interact with each other in school, but I think when you think about the fact that people are crossing those groups to hang out socially or at work, like everybody, even though they're separated, in the school system, everybody kind of has a connection to each other in the community.
It comes back to well, you can't depend upon a high school population. In general, people, I wouldn't say that it's age. I would just say that the culture around being a student, you can't depend upon those people to be socially responsible.
I hate saying it's young people because I have seen a lot of old people not take precautions and a lot of young people advocating for more precautions.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I've definitely seen more risky behavior that I don't necessarily know is preventable, but it is something that, like, you can't just pretend isn't happening when you're going up to school.
And I think it all comes back to values and what you've learned through the pandemic. I mean, I have grown a lot over the strict quarantine over the summer, and I learned a lot about myself and what I valued. And it was interesting to see that when I was constantly bombarded with a global problem like a pandemic, I started to get a more global perspective outside of just I'm a senior, this is my senior year. And I mean, that was the huge argument for going back to in-person learning was, well, do you even want a senior year? And it was well, yeah, I do, but I've learned that I don't value that as much as I would keeping the world, being socially responsible and being safe. And I'm not saying I'm perfect in any way. I'm not. I should be better at every precaution when being in a pandemic. But I also don't want to discount those people's beliefs, because I feel them and I understand that it's really frustrating to not be able to look like we have prom, or that we'll have our full senior year experience. And I understand that, and I really feel bad, and it's not like I can say that they're wrong for wanting that, but I am current in that their values are wrong. But for me, it feels well, I don't value that as much because I understand it doesn't have as much weight in the world.
It's this whole situation has been extremely disappointing for everyone. I wonder if things go well now, and if the school makes the right decisions and if people take the precautions seriously enough, things will get better enough in time for you to have maybe not an in-person senior second semester, but hopefully a type of senior week or way to celebrate being a senior at the end of it.
Yeah, I know that was the argument for holding off and going full remote for a while. And that was the school's original plan, actually. I actually admired the work the administration was doing, and it's a bummer that the school committee threw it all out in a meeting. They voted 6-1 against it to put in place their new hybrid plan. When I found out, I was like, are you kidding me? This is... Because I was already... Although I admired the administration's plan, I was already working with a group of students to be whoa, hold up. There's still work that needs to be done. So to see that they denied that and we're going with an even more crazy plan, it was very disheartening, and I was I don't even know what to do right now. I remember sitting at my kitchen table and being oh my gosh, this is really happening, and I don't know what we can do about it. So I texted my friend, a beautiful person named Nora Morrissey, who really, really was incredible at helping me organize people. She did an insane amount of work to get what we wanted done, and to get our message out to the community of, hey, we really need to think about how we return to educating ourselves and how important this is. And I just want to really, really, really thank her and give her a shout out, because she did incredible work, and she was a huge driving force behind the whole group to be hey guys, we got to get this done, we got to do this. She wrote some incredible stuff. She got an article published in the Daily News. She just all these incredible things.
I am so amazed by the amount of leadership and responsibility, true leadership that has come out of this, specifically you. and you mentioned Nora Morrissey, and I'm sure there's others that have really taken an active role in making their voices heard and speaking for probably a lot more people than just you. I'm assuming there were a lot of people backing this. How are you maintaining a connection with your classmates and teachers?
I am one of those, I feel bad almost a little bit about it, but I'm one of those students that constantly emails my teachers about stuff. I'm like, hey, I don't get this at all. What am I doing? I am not afraid to advocate for myself or people I know. I remember I did a lot of communication with the head of guidance, Miss Blackstock, in the past couple weeks, just because not only was I having a hard time, but people were texting me being like, hey, Christian, I'm having a really, really hard time right now, and I know you have been talking to Blackstock and you've been talking to people. Is there any way you could include this in that, or be like, could you send them another email for me just because I'm really nervous too, or I don't feel super comfortable doing that? And it kind of felt nice because it was like, sure, I will 100%. Because it's kind of, I almost forget that like maybe people aren't as eager and comfortable to advocate for themselves as me. It's definitely hard. It's not like you can just go and talk to them. But I have felt comfortable sending emails almost all the time. I send a lot of emails and I get emails back, and the teachers honestly just want that. If you're having a hard time with whatever you're dealing with in education, let people know. Even if you think that they don't want to hear it, advocate for yourself.
I think getting those emails relieves the stress of those people because they know the concerns and are able to help and address the concerns of students, and not just wonder if it's as up in the air for them as it is for students. So I imagine it's really helpful to be hearing from you.
People really need to recognize that not only do us students not really know how this year will go educational-wise, we really need to respect that teachers don't really know what they're doing either, and we're trying to figure it all out together. And we need to have patience, and we need to have understanding, and we need to communicate all the time to see how each other are doing, because how I might be doing might be very different than the person who's one square over on the Zoom from me is doing.
Through all this, through the pandemic, through lots of changes with school reopening plans, and now with being online, how are you staying hopeful, and is there anything that you look forward to?
Today it feels like maybe there's not a lot to be hopeful about and not a lot to feel great about to look forward to. But I am so excited for the future of our generation and what we'll do, because I've seen some amazing things from people our age, and what people our age are doing is incredible. And once they are the ones that are in charge and in power, it's going to be incredible. And I'm so excited for that.